Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited. I am bringing you a page-to-picture review and it's been a really long time since I've done one of these. I actually can't remember. This was an idea I had a while back to compare books with their adaptations, and it was something that I've been meaning to do, and I don't think I ever actually made that many, but I've got a couple in mind, and this is actually not the one I thought I was going to be doing next, but it was the one that I managed to do next because I read the book and I've watched the film. I really enjoy doing this type of review. I will get into some spoilers because to be able to compare a book with its film, I want to discuss what is different about the film, and so that means I will go a little bit into spoilery territory. So if you are not prepared for spoilers, if you want to read the book or see the film before, then go away and do that and then bookmark this and come back. So the book slash film we are talking about today is Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu. The book was first published in 2017 and the film was released on Netflix earlier this year, I think in kind of March, April time. I watched the film for the first time pretty soon after it came out with my housemate. I hadn't necessarily realised that it was a book. I vaguely remember, I think I did hear some people talking about it on BookTube around the time it first came out, but I hadn't kind of registered really what it was or what it was about. Having watched the film and then heard that it was based on a book, I got the book out from my library. I've just taken it back today, and so I've read the book and then I watched the film again last night just so I could have it fresh in my mind to talk about. If you don't know what Moxie is about, I will give you a brief synopsis. If I'm looking down, it's because I've got some notes written in my notebook here. The main character is called Vivian Carter, and she has become very aware of the blatant sexism going on in her school. This is from targeting girls for dress code violations based on a very vague dress code policy, but like not criticising the boys for what they wear. There's unequal funding of girls and boys sports, and then there's the male students often get away with misogynistic behaviour, and in the case of the book, sexual assault as well. Inspired by her mother's riot girl past, Viv creates Moxie, which is a zine or newsletter to help the girls in school connect and feel like they can fight back. As the movement gains momentum, there is backlash from the school, and Viv must come to terms with being something other than the dutiful girl everyone expects when she has cause to fight for, and she has to explore how that is going to affect her family, her friendships, and her budding relationship. So that's a bit of an overview of what the story is about. I will give some content warnings here. There's a lot of misogyny in the book particularly, and there is in the film as well. It's a slightly different kind, and I'll get to this a little bit more when I go into some of my analysis of it in a bit. In the book it tends to be more microaggressions, but just a lot of them, whereas in the film it is more blatant, more obvious misogyny that Viv and her friends are reacting to. There is also sexual assault. So in the book, the boys do the thing they call a bump and grab, which is where they pretend to knock into a girl and then essentially grope them, like grabbing at their breasts or their bra strap or that sort of thing. There's also a detailed description of groping and a reference to an attempted sexual assault in the book. In the film, there is reference to rape. So in the book it's an attempted rape, in the film they made it into kind of an actual rape, but that is just described by one character to the other characters. It's not on screen or on page. There's also some discussion of racism and intersectional feminism in both the book and the film. So a little bit about the characters, and this is more based on the book, but these characters do all appear in the film as well, and so I'll kind of go a little bit into how some of those characters are different across the two things. The main character I've already mentioned is Vivian. She is a dutiful, hard-working girl. She tries to stay under the radar at school, but she kind of is struggling to find her voice or what she cares about, and Moxie helps her to uncover that, helps her to kind of come out of her shell a little bit and make some new friends. I found her a really relatable character actually. I could see a lot of similarities between myself and her. Like, I found feminism much later in my life than she does in the story. I could see how it would really help someone in high school to have that understanding. Viv's main character is called Claudia. They've been best friends since childhood, and in both texts Claudia is initially reluctant to engage in the Moxie movement because she doesn't want to be problematic. In the film, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, it's more of a cultural thing. So in the book she's described as being Latina. In the film she's from an Asian background, and so there's that cultural difference that causes that issue for her because she can't be seen to act in a way that her family thinks is inappropriate. Another character is Lucy, who is a new girl at the school. She's moved from kind of a more progressive area, and once Moxie starts, she and Viv become friends, and it helps Viv really to find her confidence, find her voice. And she's also, in both the book and the film, is from a Latina background. Another main character in the book is Seth, who in the book he's a new boy at school. In the film he and Viv have known each other for a while, but he's kind of suddenly grown up into this kind of attractive boy. Both of those worked well actually. In the book, being a new boy, it helps for some of the kind of world building. That's not a town we necessarily associate with contemporaries. Viv can explain what happens in the school to him, so it feels less info dumpy than if she was just telling us through her role as narrator. The fact that she's explaining the goings on to Seth in the book makes it feel more natural way of giving us that information. In the book he kind of plays a bit of a role of a boy who's trying to understand feminism a bit better. So like a couple of points in the book he comes out with the kind of the not all guys line, not all guys are like that, and Viv has to explain to him that it's like she knows that there are nice guys out there, but it's really hard to tell which ones they are, and when the culture is so toxic it doesn't matter that there are nice guys, and if the nice guys aren't doing anything about it then they're kind of complicit in it. So that was a really helpful thing to have in the book and kind of framing that argument, and it was kind of a shame that that wasn't kept in the film. So Seth in the film, he and Viv have known each other since they were kids. They've just never been that close, but he's suddenly like grown up and become a lot more attractive, and she kind of realises that he is a nice guy, he's nice to everyone, he's friendly to everyone, and conflict is created in their relationship in a different way in the film, which to be fair didn't quite work as well for me. The film is more angsty. I'm kind of getting a little bit into some of my analysis here, I guess. There's more drama. I already mentioned like the misogyny is more blatant in the film, and how that plays out in Viv's character is she becomes a lot more angry. She struggles a lot more to channel that anger in a positive way. Like the book felt like the things she was doing was a lot more positive, and the movement kind of gained a bit of momentum on its own, and she is not always the instigator of some of the more radical actions in the book the way she is in the film. So the conflict is created between her and Seth in the film is because she lashes out at him over her confusion about the movement, about her relationship with her mother. So both the book and the film, her mother is a single mum. In the book it's because Viv's father has died when Viv was a baby. I think in the film it's meant to be that they're separated. It's just kind of another level of it adds to the drama, but it's only briefly mentioned, so I kind of wondered what was the point in framing it that way. Anyway, so in both the book and the film, Viv's mum has started dating someone from work who is a bit more conservative, and Viv is struggling to come to terms with this relationship, and she acts out about it a lot more in the film than she does in the book. And so again, conflict is created between her and Seth because she lashes out at him over her struggle with her mum's relationship, as well as a lot of other things. So that's just some initial thoughts of ways that the two are different. The film takes place over a lot shorter time frames, so the book takes place over a whole school year. Films often compress time frames. So in the film it feels like it takes place over a term, and I mean that kind of works for the film. It's got to keep that momentum, that narrative momentum going. I think I preferred the kind of slower pace of the book, but it did confuse me a little bit in places because I was like, oh, it all happened a lot quicker in the film. What I found interesting, I suppose one of the really major contrasts between the two was in the book, the antagonist is the same in both, I guess. It's the captain of the football team. I can't remember his name. Anyway, the awful guy in the book, who is the captain of the football team, in the book and the film, in the book his dad is the principal, and that's part of the reason why the boys get away with so much and the football team gets all the funding, and there's kind of, you get the sense there's a bit of corruption going on there, a bit of nepotism, and that kind of exacerbates the situation because the principal is protecting his own when any of these issues are raised. In the film, the principal is a woman, and that was a really interesting choice, and kind of shows how misogyny can be internalised and how sometimes women succeed by playing into a role or by pretending things are okay when they're not, and you kind of get that impression of her character. She is just turning a blind eye to a lot of things because she doesn't want to make a fuss, and that again creates conflict in a different way. What I thought was really good in the film that was maybe easier to make more obvious than in the book was the intersectionality. In the film there's a transgender character, there's also a disabled character. They're both quite minor characters, but I thought that was really great to include them and to make the point that feminism isn't just about like one type of woman. There's also a lot of exploration in both the film and the book about how race affects feminism and intersectionality in that way. This is explored a little bit more in the film, as I've already mentioned, by Claudia's character being of Asian heritage and not Latina, and how that presents different challenges for her. I will say it did feel a little bit like it was playing into cultural stereotypes about Asian people in the film, which made me a little bit uncomfortable, but I could also understand why they made those choices to make that point. Both the book and the film feature, so Viv is white, but there are also a number of black feminist students that get involved with her movement as well, and I thought that was handled really well across both. As I already mentioned, there was a lot more kind of drama in the film, there was more conflict that was created. At times this felt unnecessary having read the book, but again I can understand why they made those choices to try and make it more dramatic, give the narrative more impetus, bring it to that climax a bit quicker. And again, another thing that helped keep the narrative moving that bit more quickly in the film was the use of the movement itself, which gained momentum much more quickly in the film than it did in the book. In the book, after the first newsletter, it's a little while before anything happens, and it's only really after like, I think it's the second or third one that people start to really like question and band together and take the initiative to start doing their own things. Whereas in the film, it's pretty much straight away after the first newsletter that some of the girls gather together and start trying to like figure out what's going on and bring this movement together. So in some ways that meant that it was more about the movement from the start, but it still felt that in the film Viv has more, she's still more in control of what happens, and she's still taking the initiative to do stuff more. So in some senses the film still focuses more on Viv, whereas in the book what I really liked was the movement does take a life of its own more quickly. So Viv is still producing these newsletters, but other people are doing their own thing more quickly. So like in the book, Lucy organises a bake sale to raise money for the soccer team, and then some of the girls from the soccer team then create their own event under the label of Moxie. There's more feeling of everyone is involved very quickly and taking the initiative, and it becomes less about Viv, which I really liked in the book. And then the last thing I think I want to say is, again, comes back to the relationship between three main female characters of Viv, Claudia and Lucy. So there's kind of this idea of, does a new friendship threaten an old friendship? And I thought that was handled really well in both cases. One thing that I thought was a really interesting choice, so in the book Lucy registers Moxie as a club at the school, Lucy being the new girl, and she does that so she can hold the bake sale for the football team. So then when the story is coming to its climax, when people start to get into trouble for being involved with Moxie, it's Lucy that takes the fall because she's the one associated in the school paperwork. In the film they chose to make that Claudia, and I thought that was a really interesting way of kind of deepening Viv's isolation and deepening her angst, because Claudia is her oldest and dearest friend, and in the film there's also the suggestion that Claudia's figured out that it's Viv that's doing Moxie, whereas in the book it's clear that no one knows. So it created this extra tension in their friendship, and so again I can understand why they did that, because in both Viv feels guilty that one of her friends is taking the blame for something that is essentially she has done, but that's deeper in the film because it's her oldest friend, whereas she really does care about Lucy, because by the time this happens in the book it's like most of the way through the year. She has gotten to know Lucy quite well at this point, and I just thought that was a really interesting contrast. Again, that was a little bit playing into this cultural stereotype that it was worse for it to be Claudia because she was from an Asian background and school was so important, whereas in the book it was like Lucy was living with her parents and her grandparents, and her grandmother, her abuelita, was very concerned that Lucy was suddenly getting into trouble at school. I'm not sure that it was an entirely helpful decision in the sense of cultural stereotypes to make Claudia the fall guy, but I can understand narratively why they chose to do that and how that deepened the drama from the perspective of how Viv handles her friendships. So I think that's most of what I want to say. The final thing I want to say actually is the film has an absolutely amazing soundtrack, and there's a lot of reference in the book to these 90s girl bands, particularly Bikini Kill, who I've listened to a little bit now. They are awesome. So yeah, I just really love that music, and I started listening to some of the music when I was reading the book to try and get a feel for what is inspiring Viv and keeping her going. But to have it in the film just like tied in was just excellent, and I really love every music choice in that film was just brilliant. So I think that's everything I want to say. I'm going to end by saying both this book and this film were absolutely amazing. I love both of them. Both made me cry, both made me laugh, both made me really proud to be a feminist. I kind of feel like I should be wearing one of my feminism t-shirts today. Yeah, but I love this t-shirt. Highly recommend both of them. Really worth checking out. If you just need a couple of hours and you want a film that is going to make you feel good, then definitely go watch Moxie on Netflix. It's so worth it. If you want to have kind of a longer experience of the story, like, the book is so good as well. If I had to choose between them, I think I would just slightly give the book the edge over the film, but I really love them both. Definitely I'm going to be getting my own copy. I think I might even try and talk a little bit about it in some of the research I'm going to be doing next year, because some of it, particularly the stuff to do with the dress code and how girls are blamed for boys' actions, women are blamed for men's actions, ties in with some of the stuff I'm going to be looking at and the research I'm going to be doing, which I've mentioned a little bit in one of my recent reads video. But at some point I might, when I've kind of started the research a little bit in the autumn, I might make a video about what my research is looking at and why it's interesting and important. If you are interested in that, do let me know. Yes, I'm definitely going to be getting a copy of the book, and the film is definitely going on my rewatch frequently list. One of my best friends hasn't seen it, so I'm going to be watching it again with her at some point. Really highly recommend both of them. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. So let me know if you've read this book or seen this film and what you think of it or them. If you have any suggestions for book to film adaptations or book to TV show adaptations that you'd like to hear me talk about, do let me know as well. Or if you just want to let me know you've been here, one of the things that happens in the book and the films is that Viv encourages the girls to draw stars and hearts on their hand to, I feel like I should have done it, to help them find each other. So if you would just want to let me know that you've been here and that you've watched this far, leave me some star or heart emojis in the comments section. You can also like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already, and also follow me on my social media. All that information will be listed in the description box below for you. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!